Smash.
Smash.
Hi guys, Obi Dave here.
Africanash.
Together we're Obi Dave and Africanash.
Here we are.
Shockingly well thought out name. Absolutely groundbreaking.
Original and awesome.
Yeah. So it's good to see you here, and literally we just watched the Netflix Kai, the Hatchet Wielding Hitchhiker,
I think it's something that, or hitchhiking wielding it is.
Yeah, it's wielding hitchhiking. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you heard about Kai, the hitchhiking hatchet hero?
We watched it. We watched it last night, and literally, like the whole time, we're pausing it. We're sort of debating it. Like we're talking about, and we love watching things where we can try and figure out the psychology of people.
Yeah.
And had different opinions on some of it.
We did, but I think that's what I love the most about our discussions is because we have such different points of views, and we don't argue about it. We just discuss it further, and then we take on each other's points and go, oh no, I didn't think about that point. You're moving the camera again with your feet.
Oh, yeah.
You did this in the Stanhope video.
Yeah. So if you didn't already know, Ash is a very big advocate for him. She says he's totally innocent, never did anything wrong. No? That wasn't no?
You know exactly how I feel. I made it clear.
I know.
I probably repeated myself. I'm terrible for repeating myself, and I said it about 8 times. I was just like, I knew.
So we'll do a bit of background in case anyone's not watched it, but it's well worth watching the Netflix documentary on him, because it's such a crazy story, and there's so much in there that I didn't know. But basically, he was a hitchhiker, like a sort of...
homeless nomad is what they called him in America.
Yeah, just like a kind of surfer, skater bum. And he was hitchhiking with a guy, and the guy ended up starting to say that he was Jesus and all this sort of stuff. And then crashed into a load of construction workers, I think it was.
And pinned a poor African-American against another vehicle.
Yeah, and started shouting racial stuff.
Yeah, really horrible words. And then there was a woman, and I think they sisters.
I think it was
two women. They're either sisters or mother and daughter, and they had a stall on the side of the road. And at first, they thought that the driver had maybe passed out or been unwell, and then crashed. They went to check on the driver. And apparently this hitchhiker, Kai, as he's known as across the internet, he stayed in the car until the last minute. But these two women went over to check on the driver, and he got out and became very aggressive. And
I think he bear hugged one of them.
He did. He was trying to choke her. And that's when the hitchhiker, obviously Kai, got out of the car.
With a hatchet.
He hit the guy 3 times.
Smash.
Is obviously huge memes. It was massive. It happened in 2013.
Yeah.
I think it was the April. No, it was before that. I think it was like the March or the April of 2013.
I'm not sure when it was, but it's one of the crazy viral videos from the early sort of 2010s. But yeah, and that's as far as I knew. And then all the memes that came after it, I didn't realise how mad his life went for the next 3 months.
No, I didn't.
I didn't know that he'd been arrested and convicted of a murder.
Yeah.
I didn't know all this other crazy stuff.
I'd heard he'd been convicted, but for a completely separate event.
Yeah.
But all I remember at the time is it being so viral. I was in my last year of uni, and I was one of the only ones, other than my outside of my group of friends, who didn't think that he was a hero. To me, when the video went viral, I was like, this is wrong. Something's not right. You don't behave whether you have rescued 2 women and obviously this construction worker, you wouldn't be like he was. But then, everyone kept arguing with me, saying if he's been a nomad, he's got a different way of life. He's probably had it really tough and hard, so he's got a tougher shell around him.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious he's been through some trauma. It's obvious from that interview that he is. I mean, he comes across very charismatic, very likable, but it is obvious that there's some underlying issues there. But I don't think anyone ever didn't think that he had some potential issues.
No, I think they
people
just overshadowed it.
Yeah, because he seems so kind-hearted, and he seems to have saved some people. He's a hero, all this sort of stuff, and I think.
And also his opening statement in that one interview, because apparently he only interviewed with the one guy, according to the documentary, and then just disappeared because he was on his way to, continue traveling north. And the first thing he says is, no matter who you are worthy, sort of thing. And he made this really positive, hippie kind of statement, and people just fell in love with him.
Yeah.
And it became, I remember the memes. I remember like the songs, Smash, Smash, sort of thing. So it became huge overnight. Like,
yeah. So you had your doubts about, obviously we didn't know each other at the time when all that went viral. But you had your doubts about him at the time. I just remembered the clip. I remember all the sort of songs and the memes and stuff. And then for me, that's where it ended. It all just went away. I didn't have any thoughts on him probably for the last 7-8 years.
See, I remember thinking, like, I got sick and tired of hearing everyone talk about how great this guy was, because I was just like, I don't think I agree. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. It just felt wrong. And then when I found out he'd been incarcerated, I was like, I'm kind of not surprised. But it stopped there for me again. Like, I didn't do any further research. I was in the middle of my uni exam, so it kind of just died off.
Well, it's the same. All these viral sensations, that everyone wants a piece of them when it happens, and then move on to the next thing. And that's literally that's how the internet works usually. So I've not given him any thought until I saw the sort of advert for this, the trailer for this documentary, and I was like, no way, it's been. And instantly when I saw that, I thought, there's got to be a mistake. He's got to be awaiting trial for being wrongly accused of a murder. Yeah. And then you get into the whole documentary, and it's like, wow, actually.
See, I originally thought that he'd been incarcerated because obviously the guy who had pinned the construction worker, the African American, against the other car, I thought he had, obviously with the hatchet, taken this guy's life.
Yeah.
But it was interesting in the documentary to see that it was a completely separate situation.
Yeah.
And he'd actually, the first 2 blows were the blunt end of the hatchet, and then it was the final blow that was the blade. And it was interesting because the guy was absolutely fine, wasn't he? He was incarcerated for a number of years, wasn't he? His name was Brett,
I think he got 9 years.
He got 9 years.
Didn't he, for hate crime.
Yeah.
And
also, like, obviously we only saw a very small section of the construction worker, but he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah, he was in a wheelchair for. Yeah, it was the trial, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they don't talk about the construction worker, which I would have liked to have known what actually happened.
He was never interviewed in the documentary, was he? Which I found surprising.
Yeah, because they interviewed the lady who'd obviously been choked, and they call it bear hugging. That's what she kept saying. He bear hugged me and, like, trying to choke me. And then obviously Kai came out of the car and defended her. But they don't speak to him. Maybe he didn't want
Some people probably don't want to be associated with it at this point.
I imagine it's quite traumatic. You're in the middle of your day of work, you get pinned against a vehicle, and then your whole world changes. I can't imagine he recovered very well from that.
It depends. I mean, it looks like it was. It looked like it was a flatbed, so he's kind of been pinned half under the flatbed, if you know what I mean.
But that would have absolutely wrecked his spine and hips.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I can't imagine he would have gone back to work very soon and probably struggled for many years.
He probably would have got a significant payout, I'd imagine.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
But yeah, loads of stuff comes out in the documentary about Kai's upbringing and the fact that his mum was abusive, which his cousin was interviewed and talked about. He backed up some of the claims that had been made.
But the mum denied all of it.
As soon as it went to the mum, she lied. She contradicted herself within the first sentence she actually said. And she said, I never locked him in his room. I just had to sort of secure him in a room for his own safety. And it's like, you just said you didn't lock him in a room, but you had to make sure he didn't leave a room by securing him in there. And it's like, that for me destroyed all her credibility in the opening sentence of her even talking.
It was just, it was awful because there was so much evidence about what she'd been doing and she was completely denying it. And I didn't...
She was blaming everyone else.
Oh, I know. And then she was making out like he was difficult. And it's like, you still don't lock a kid in a bedroom.
Well, I've known people when a kid's absolutely lost it to put a catch on the bedroom door temporarily, when it's bedtime and they're flipping out. I've known a couple of people do that, and it's a very last case scenario. But Kai's talking about that happening in the day when other kids are playing.
Yeah, playing outside because they put black sheets over the curtains and just literally block out
The
everything.
only people I know of that have done that have done it at bedtime when they've had to put up with like 2 hours of the kids screaming coming downstairs.
Yeah.
Very worst case scenario, but that's a complete different ball.
Oh, I know. It's like, I mean, I used to get sent to my room as a kid and told I wasn't allowed to come out, but I was never locked in. It was, you stay in there, and if you come out, there's going to be further consequences.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I think, like, he's been abused as a kid, without a doubt. And
definitely. He's had a hard time.
It sounds like hitchhiking and stuff, he's been abused a bit as well. But he's one of those people that...
He seemed like he was quite self-worthy of himself. What's the word I'm looking for? But it was like every clip...
He loved himself.
He loved him, that's it, yeah. And like every clip, he's like, get me some alcohol and I'll do the video. Or you can take pictures when you buy me a bottle of Jack Daniels and stuff. And it was just like, yeah man, that's not... And then
he's a troubled kid, though. A lot of people like that hit the streets because they are troubled and they don't want to deal with everyday, regular life. They just want to literally go wherever the wind takes them with zero responsibilities.
I get why it was hard to see that side of him, and like even one of the journalists said that they were aware of his behaviour and they were concerned, but it kind of got overshadowed by the fact that he was so charismatic, and he gave his backpack to some homeless guy. He apparently gave $500 to security.
What's his face?
Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel gave him $500 in an envelope. Yeah. And he turned around and gave it straight to the security guy.
And then apologised for peeing on the sign. So
he was obviously a handful, and he was obviously used to just doing whatever he wanted. But then, like, as you get later on, you definitely see the darker side. But something that I literally found out just before we're filming this that I've not told you yet.
Oh yeah, you said that. You came in and told me, and I was like, tell me. He's like, no, you'll wait. And he's like, oh, juicy.
you know the comedian Theo Vaughn?
Yes.
We've reacted to him over on The Office Blokes. Yeah. He does a lot of the podcast stuff with Rogan and people like that. Someone deep faked Theo Vaughn's face onto that original interview, the Smash interview.
Whoa.
And it's really funny, and Theo's face fits perfectly. So that happened, and Theo shared it, and it's been a bit of a running joke with the podcast and things like that.
Oh dear.
Theo has just received a letter this week from Kai from jail saying he's a jailhouse lawyer. That's how he describes himself, and he's been practicing law for 9 years. And he's basically said he's suing Theo Vaughn for this clip. He wants the clip completely taken off the internet, and he wants his costs covered by Theo Vaughn. And Theo's just done this little 3-minute video talking about it, where he's going, I am going to have to get legal help. But Theo's got money, and he's got legal people and stuff.
Yeah, a good team.
So he said, I'm going to do he does a solo podcast, and he said he might bring his lawyer on the solo podcast to discuss what the letter means.
Wow.
Smash. He's the famous smasher, you know? He's that handyman that fucking couldn't find a nail, cuz, you know who that is. That's him, baby.
But you read it, and it's like he wants that clip sort of expunged from the internet, which once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, everyone would have downloaded it. People would have clipped it into their own videos.
But he wants his costs covered by Theo Vaughn, and it's like, what costs?
What costs?
If you're a jailhouse lawyer.
Well, it costs money to appeal, and remember, it said at the end of the documentary that he was denied his appeal in, was it 2019 or 2021? He was denied. Yeah. So apparently he's not giving up. Obviously trying to appeal it because he got 57 years.
57 years in prison, yeah.
So his denial was obviously in, I think it said the November or the December of the 2021, so obviously in the height of lockdown. Like that, yeah.
So now he's just looking for people to sue to get some money, basically, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that's what Jeffrey Archer did. You haven't seen Making of a Murderer, have you?
Yeah.
You have seen it?
Yeah, it's not Jeffrey Archer.
No, it's Jeffrey...
Jeffrey Archer was a politician.
What his name? What was his name? It was Archer something.
No.
Oh, God.
I can't remember. I've only seen the first series of it, because I know there's another one.
Avery.
Stephen Avery. Oh my God, why did I get Jeffrey Archer? You know what? I think that whole Netflix documentary about him was done in such a way to make him look innocent.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think he's guilty.
I
fully think he's guilty.
I don't think he was guilty the first time. I do think he was wrongly accused in the original, obviously.
Oh yeah, well he got a settlement for that.
But I think he came out thinking he was untouchable, and then...
You listen to the stories about his family and the stuff they were getting up to.
Well, yeah. But it's also Brendan, like... He wasn't obviously of a high IQ.
He was coerced.
Yeah, he was.
I think he was coerced into being a complicit and coerced into the confession.
Yeah, definitely.
And we digress massively.
Yeah, we are, hugely.
The thing with Kai, I think, like Ash's spidey senses were tingling sooner, and you were looking at him like there's deep, dark stuff going on.
Yeah.
Whereas I was looking at him and I was like, I know people like him, and they're usually troubled, but they're usually harmless at the same time. And it took me a lot longer to come round to the fact that I actually think this guy might be a sociopath, and he's kind of covering it with all this stuff about whoever you are, whatever you've done, you deserve to be loved. He's talking to himself.
Before I say anything else, I want to say no matter what you've done, you deserve respect. Even if you make mistakes, you're lovable. And it doesn't matter your look, skills, or age, or size, or anything, you're worthwhile.
See,
He's talking to himself when he's saying all that.
He does. But the first thing I thought when I saw it was snake in a bonnet.
Snake in a bonnet?
It's I suppose it's a South African term that we use quite a lot. It's to basically say that you can dress a snake really pretty, but it's still a snake. So
like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah. We say a snake in a bonnet. So like a pretty little bonnet. You know, like a girly bonnet.
Mutton dressed as lamb.
But the one thing I really enjoyed about the documentary was they talked about how the journalist took accountability for the way that they encouraged his behavior, and they made him big overnight and viral, and it was almost like, and I said to you, it was like the way that Varys talked about Daenerys in Game of Thrones. We made her the monster because we praised her for murdering people, and ultimately we made her the monster she is.
But it sounds like Kai may have done bad things before all this happened, because he talks about when he was hitchhiking he got assaulted. You know, like a guy forced himself on him, and
when he was 17 apparently,
and he kind of alluded to something happening there, and then like if we go on to like the story of what actually happened with him,
but this is where I got the confusion, because he talks about the assault when he was 17, but this person that he was obviously incarcerated for the murder of, it was shortly after his obviously rise to fame and his viral sensation. It was because he made a statement on his Facebook about vigilante against pedophiles and, you know, certain types of bad people, and he must have got into his head being in the status where everyone was like, oh, you're a hero, you're a great guy, and then having that nomadic, like saying like no boundaries, living to his own rules and doing what he wanted and having no consequences. He was like, well, I can do what I want.
Yeah. I think he probably was assaulted when he was younger.
Yeah.
And I think that stayed with him. This is all opinion, by the way. It's all like is just what we think.
We glean from it. Yeah.
Not stating anything as fact, because we don't know. We weren't there.
No. And there's always his story, her story, and the truth. And the truth often never really comes out.
Yeah, but I think he was telling the truth when he said he was assaulted when he was younger. I think there's possibly more to it, where possibly that person's ended up hurt quite badly. Yeah. I think he's carried that with him, but because he's lived this, because he's lived this sort of nomadic sort of lifestyle, I think.
Typical living on a main road. Yeah, sorry. Oh my God! Turn your alarm off.
I know. I'll chop this bit out.
Don't chop it out. I think it's funny.
Right, I'll leave it in.
Quite funny. It's like when Nerdy Crafter gets like motorbike riders going up and down the road, and all you can hear is.
So my sort of theory with it, and this is like when I say me and Ash watch things like this and just throw theories at each other until we find what we think could be plausible. My theory was that he was assaulted when he was younger. It's affected him a lot, especially having been abused as a kid. But having this kind of nomadic lifestyle, he's obviously had to be charming and charismatic to get a place to stay, to get money for booze, to get food, just to survive.
It's a survival technique.
It's a rough life.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is only opinion, and I'm not saying anything as fact here. So
no, but it fits a lot. There are a lot of points of evidence. I know, because I know what you're going to say, because we talked about it.
Yeah, my theory is that maybe on the streets he's had to do things that he wouldn't necessarily want to do, like let's say favours for other men.
Yes.
Possibly to get somewhere to stay or to get money. I mean, there was a lot of talk about him having a drug problem as well as a drink problem.
Yeah.
And I think to feed the addictions and the habits, possibly, he's done things that he wouldn't necessarily have otherwise done.
Yeah.
And my sort of theory, and again, not stating this as fact, but my theory was that the guy he got convicted for killing, he'd met that guy the guy potentially could have been a gay guy. We don't know because they don't really talk about it too
And also
much.
he was that kind of generation because he was in his 70s?
73.
That was it. So he would have come from that generation where
it's taboo.
It was. So.
But yeah, my sort of theory was that maybe he's gone back to that guy's house. They've drank a load of beers together. There's been consensual stuff happen, but obviously intoxicated consensual stuff has happened, and I think the next day that's why he's driven him to the train station. He's paid for his train
embrace
ticket.
it looks very like
the hug he gave him it seemed very genuine.
It did.
And then I think one of two things I think potentially happened. So I think Kai has gone back to meet his friends, like he said. He's been let down. He needed a place to stay.
Yeah.
And he's gone back to the guy's place, but this time maybe refused the guy's advances. And then got angry, and that's where he's lashed out and attacked the guy.
This is where, when Dave came up with this theory last night, I actually kind of agreed because it did fit, and it seemed to fit into a lot of spaces, especially when his cousin, when he's been interviewed, talks about how Kai has almost like this split personality where you'd be laughing and joking with him, and he would just flip.
Yeah.
And then he'd go from absolute happy-go-lucky to extreme anger, and then back to being, happy-go-lucky. Yeah. And it is like, because obviously they found the guy face down in his underwear and socks. So there's obviously maybe they'd been starting something, and then Kai had flipped and decided I didn't want to do this.
Yeah,
and then
I think possibly
he'd also cleaned the place, because that was a big thing. Was when they found the house, there was no signs of a struggle. There was no signs of anything. The bed was made. But then when they did, obviously, the forensic tests, they found bloody footprints everywhere. There was blood all over the place.
I think so.
And the guy had been properly beaten. Like
I think he's either been let down by his friends, like he said. He's gone back. Some advances have been made. He's said no, and maybe there was some sort of unspoken thing of I'm giving you somewhere to stay. I'm feeding you. I'm giving you alcohol. It's kind of a reciprocal thing.
Yeah.
And he's gone back and he's refused the advances, and then just snapped, got angry, and
they could have been in the middle of getting intimate, and Kai flipped halfway through.
The other
because the fact that the guy was in his boxers and socks implies that they were halfway through getting into something, and maybe Kai just flipped. Because the way his cousin, this is my theory, but the way the cousin explained how he would just flip like that, to me it's like he went back. He knew that he would have to do these things with this guy because that's what he expected. And they started to get down to it. And then Kai snapped and just went all hell, because the injuries incurred after the post-mortem
when they showed it was horrific.
Oh, it was absolutely awful. I mean, we had to pause to read the report. But the damage done was horrific.
But the other, I mean, I never got to say it, but the second possibility for me was he was never going to meet friends in the first place. He just wanted to be seen, to be leaving.
Yeah.
He was amicable with the guy, and then went back. And it was more premeditated. That was the two possibilities. Yeah. I personally believe the first one,
this lawyer
where he's
was
gone back.
This guy was a lawyer, wasn't he? The one that was murdered, and he was.
We don't know anything about the guy.
No, but there was a mention that he was always fearful because of the line of work he was in, because one of his colleagues said that he was always looking over his shoulder because of the line of work, didn't he? But because we were talking so much, this is our problem sometimes, is we just carry on talking and forget to pause. That's why when we thought about doing like watch-alongs, we're like, it's just going to annoy you guys because we talk so much.
Yeah, all we do is talk over it. But yeah, that's the two possibilities in my eyes. But one of the theories I threw out there was, maybe it's got a bit hot and heavy. He's refused. The guy's been a bit more forceful into it, and then maybe he's like hit him one or two times, and him being an older guy, that was enough. But then when we saw that injury sheet, it was like, actually, that's a sustained, quite vicious attack.
Horrific. I mean, an echiomyosis is a horrible injury. It's like the fractures, the impact on his chest, the slamming down on his head.
Yeah. I think definitely not. What he did was horrific, and I think he's guilty of it personally. He's been convicted of it. I think all this past trauma for him has just come to the fore. I don't think it's the first time. In fact, he's admitted it's not the first time he's been really violent.
No,
even without the Hatchet incident.
Oh my God.
There's another previous incidents where he's talked about being extremely violent.
But at the same time, it was interesting to see about taking things with a pinch of salt, because apparently he said to this band member that called the Redcoats, oh, you're going to go nosy. Is it your car?
No.
Okay.
There's someone sat in it, that's why the alarm's going off.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
There's a woman sat in the passenger seat. And obviously the fella's got out to go somewhere. And just locked the car with her in it.
He's gone to the Burton Lounge for a shisha. But did I tell you, it's slightly off topic, but I was chatting to obviously my neighbour who runs the shop. And you remember the one night when we came home and there was a whole bunch of cars parked on my pavement and they all had shishas out of their windows? It was because of social distancing. He said he came up with the idea that you would do a drive-in shisha.
Nice.
I was like, oh my god, that's genius.
Yeah.
Anyway, get back to the story. But yeah, it's an incredibly fascinating documentary. I highly recommend it, because these kind of things, for me, I love them. It's why I love true crime, because there's so much evidence and there's so many conflicting bits of information and people's points of views that, you know, you can take so many points of stories. Like one of the guys that he was in a gig with, they were called the Redcoats, the musician, the lead singer said, he apparently Kai said to him, oh, this guy that I was hitchhiking with, the one who he'd laced a joint with all these, like, enlisted a whole bunch of really random, obviously, DOAs, and unfortunately, when they did the post-mortem, the toxicology, there was nothing but marijuana. So it's like, was he saying the truth about everything? I think a guy that's a street kid like that has got to be so used to getting on with everyone, and I think he definitely lies a lot. Like, in my opinion of people like that is, they'll say whatever they need to say in any given time to make themselves look good, but also to survive, because he must have been living a rough life for years. Absolutely.
And, you know, if you can't be malleable and be plasticine, you know, for all the people around you, you're really going to struggle to find a community, especially when you. And my question always was when, obviously this Brett was, you know, crashed into this African American construction worker. Why didn't Kai react then? Why did it take until he was choking a woman? Because apparently they had quite a kerfuffle on that street, like screaming at her and like becoming aggressive. The guy was still pinned at this point. Exactly. So potentially Kai could have been in the car trying to get the car off the guy. But he was in the passenger seat. He doesn't talk about what happened. He just sort of, he only mentions, he goes, oh, and then he goes for these women. And then I got out. And it's like, so why didn't you do anything when the African American? And I remember that was what I thought at the time. And I was like, this is not right. He's definitely a snake with a bonnet on. He's just not. There's a lot that goes unsaid in the documentary, which that's why it's so open for debate. But watch it. It's on Netflix now. Definitely watch it for yourself. And if you have watched it, let us know what you think in the comments, because we do. All we do is throw theories at each other. We're both smart asses when we watch stuff. Oh, I know. We just throw theories at each other, and then like sometimes it'll go, that's plot, and then we both agree. But it's also like we love competing at, like, you know, recognizing characters and actors, and you nailed it in the Wednesday. You obviously hit the nail on the head with Uncle Fester, and I did not see it until obviously we saw him with hair on in the pictures, and I was like, oh my god, it is him! Stranger Things. And then I got the Man of Many Faces, where I was just like, what? I can see his face. The big get was Stranger Things, that guy was number one. Yeah. Which you didn't get. No, I didn't. I did not get it. I knew you, but that was because you were happy because I found, obviously I worked out the Man of Many Faces. It was the way his voice sounded. I was like, I know this guy, and then all of a sudden it just clicked, and I was like, oh. Anyway, we've gone on for nearly half an hour now. I know. So again, watch it for yourself. Let us know if you have watched it in the comments section, what you thought or what theories you've got or anything like that. Because we do love to hear stuff like that. And make sure you like and subscribe, especially if you enjoy the sort of content we do. If you want us to chat pants more often like this, let us know, because we're more than happy to do it. Oh yeah, we were always happy to do this, even if it's just sat with, like when we did the Castle Lager and we just sat and we talked about rubbish. The Queen for 40 minutes. We did, we did, different points of view. This is just what we do when the cameras aren't on anyway. I know, Yeah, so cheers for that one, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.